Everyone. Today I'm going to do a review of the Coast BX313 Pro Predator folding knife. I got this knife for free when I ordered some 511 pants from Galls, so I figured I'd put some of my bias aside about the cheaper Chinese-made knives and test it out. And after about a week and a half of testing, I feel it's fair time to do a review on my impressions of it. Basically, the Coast BX313 is a lockback folding knife. It's similar to some of the things Spyderco makes as far as like their Delicas and Enduras. I would almost go as far to say as it's a blatant ripoff, considering this pocket clip design is very similar. But it's kind of hard to make this kind of shape of a knife without saying that you at least borrowed from Spyderco. So what we have here is it's a nylon kind of plastic handle, lockback design. The clip is reversible to tip up and tip down. You have a hole opener, partial serration, and then if you measure this blade with a ruler, it comes out to about 3 inches sharpened and 3¼ inches if you count the unsharpened portion here. As far as blade thickness goes, the blade is about 1/8 of an inch thick. My first impressions of it were that it's about average for knives you're getting in the $20 price range. Galls was giving this away for free as a bonus, so either they're unable to sell them or they just figured it was a way to increase sales and unload some knives that they probably got from the manufacturer for about $5 each. If you look at the area inside the hole opener here, it's very roughly finished. I can insert pictures of this. Very roughly finished steel. It's as if someone, when they made this in the factory, they just took a giant press and pressed it out like a cookie when they took this blade and then they put an edge on it. Some of the screws also came pre-stripped. This one here is pre-stripped. I'm not going to try to change the orientation of this pocket clip. And also these screws for a Torx bit. This one back here is also malformed. It's not even stripped. Other than that, the factory edge was rather uninspiring, so I used this knife to practice my freehand sharpening skills on a Spyderco sharpener, and got a decent edge out of it. The serrations, on the other hand, I think are next to useless as far as sharpening is concerned, because of the pattern they used with them. You have a big opening, 2 little small openings, and another big opening, and that continues down the blade. These very small openings make it impossible to get a sharpening tool in there. I could do the bigger ones. I don't understand why Coast chose that pattern when you have some other folding knives with serrations. Having a much more usable pattern like this Gerber here, where you have smaller serrations, but they're not tiny ones like this one, where it's a little pinprick of a serration that you can't possibly sharpen that. So in cutting, and I've used this around the house and around the woods and outside, it does a decent job. Cut through this sock here. The blade obviously is more useful to me than the serrations are. I personally hate serrated knives. I guess they can be done well in theory, but in practice, serrations are rarely good. I find it interesting that Galls, in giving these knives out, I expect a lot of emergency personnel are going to get them. And while I think it's better to have a knife than no knife, or a cheap knife to beat on while maybe you have a Benchmade or a ZT in your pocket on the other side, I'm wondering how much of a service these knives really do. Like, I'm not even really able to shear through this sock without cutting myself. And that's because of those serrations. The serration pattern is, I'd give it an F. The blade, it's a blade. It's decent. The steel type on this knife is a 7CR17 stainless alphabet soup Chinese steel. I know Coast is not the only company using that. Kershaw uses a similar steel, as probably does Gerber, even though they don't really disclose. The packaging here, it says it's ambidextrous opening, pocket clip, and lockback for safety. I don't know if that's because they think their knife isn't all that safe, but if you wobble this blade in and out a little bit, there is a little blade play there. Not a lot of side to side, it's more up and down blade play. Not terrible, but it's enough that you can feel it wiggle right back here behind the jimping on the blade, and you can hear it. Other than that, lockup is solid. You have your typical lockback design, which features your lockback, and then this one has a more cylindrical piece of spring steel locking it. Not really a one-handed knife in the closing department unless you're willing to put your fingers in jeopardy and push the button and flick. So as far as that kind of use, for emergency use, if you're expecting to quickly deploy your knife, well, the hole opener works fine for that. But as far as closing the knife and putting it away, you're going to have to end up using two hands on that safely. All in all, I wouldn't say I wasn't pleasantly surprised, nor was I severely disappointed. When you're getting a knife from a company like Coast, if you've handled better knives, come to expect that in the $20 and sub $20 field, it's not going to be as smooth or as well built as a Benchmade, a ZT, and Emerson, or all the other major brands. I do think that this knife would compete against things like M-Tech and the flea market knives. I would much rather have something like this than those ones I just mentioned. It's more solid, and the design actually has a little bit of weight to it. Although the metal involved in this handle looks a lot more like pot metal than something where you have finely finished 440J steel as the liners, and then the blade is, say, 154 cm like a Benchmade would be. But it's a usable knife. I plan to use it to test out my sharpening skills and play around with it and beat the crap out of it. Thank you for watching.